Hello students, welcome to a new chapter, that is respiration in plants. So in the previous lectures we have already completed about the seeds. So we have understood about the basic seed structure, okay, how there is a formation of a plants from the seeds. So there is a continuation link between these chapters. Why? Because see, from the seed only the plant is going to develop. So we have studied about the seeds in the detail only. Now we are going to study one step ahead, that is in respiration in plants. So first, basically what do you mean by the term respiration? So first I'm going to read out the definition for you, and then I'm going to make you understand, okay, what does that mean. So respiration is basically the catabolic processes of releasing energy from the simple sugar glucose for carrying out the life processes. So first I'm going to help you out with the word that is a catabolic. The catabolic word means the breakdown, okay, of releasing energy. Releasing energy means what? ATP from simple sugar glucose, that is C6H12O6. So basically respiration is nothing but a catabolic process like breaking down of releasing the energy in the form of ATP from the simple sugar glucose for carrying out the life process. So we know this, how does this glucose gets broken down and gets converted into carbon dioxide and water. So this carbon dioxide is developed from a region that is the cell organelle called mitochondria, because the function of the mitochondria is for the cellular respiration. So the respiration process, it's a chemical process, it occurs in the organelle, that is the mitochondria. So basically this is the respiration formula. See, this is a glucose in the presence of oxygen, okay, in the presence of oxygen it is getting breaking down into carbon dioxide, water and ATP. What is this ATP? ATP is nothing but the energy molecule, okay, which helps us to provide up the energy. Now if you look carefully, it is in the presence of oxygen, right? There would be another kind of a respiration which would occur in the absence of oxygen, but as this is in the presence of oxygen, we are going to call it as aerobic respiration, because the word aerobic means oxygen, means with oxygen, okay, with oxygen. And how many ATP it is going to release? That is 38 ATP, okay. These are the energy molecules. Now let's understand, if you look at the respiration formula and if you reverse up the formula, like carbon dioxide plus water will give you glucose plus oxygen, so it would seem like a formula of the photosynthesis, okay. So that's why there is a slide, okay, what do you mean by photosynthesis? Like we have already heard about the photosynthesis process in your lower standards also, that it is a process in which the plants make their own food with the help of carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. See, if you are going to look at this part, okay, what is this? This is basically the solar energy which we are getting from the sun. The carbon dioxide is available in the atmosphere and we water the plant also, and there is the function of this sunlight and the chlorophyll. What is the function of this sunlight? Is to trap this energy, and chlorophyll, it helps us to give up the green color pigmentation, chlorophyll, and it forms up the glucose. What is glucose? Glucose means nothing but the form of food, okay, and this oxygen is released by these plants, so that this oxygen is very useful for the humans, because we breathe in oxygen for the survival. So this glucose and oxygen has been made by these plants, and both of them are very useful for the humans. This sunlight and chlorophyll are very important. Let's understand them with the help of a distinguish. Here if you are going to see, there are two sides. That is, the first side is the photosynthesis and the next side is the respiration. Here, if you are going to see that photosynthesis occurs in the plants and some photosynthetic bacteria. Okay, as of now, just keep this photosynthetic bacteria as on hold because it will come in the 5 kingdom classification. But respiration occurs in all the living organisms, whether it is plants, animals, bacteria, everything. Photosynthesis, the word photo means only the light, so it helps in the, so it takes up the process in the help of the presence of the light. But the respiration does not need any of the sunlight or something like that. It can occur throughout the day. Where does photosynthesis occurs? That occurs in chloroplasts. Okay, chloroplast is a cell organelle. We have studied this in the cell chapter. Okay, here the respiration occurs in the aerobic respiration occurs in the cytoplasm and mitochondria, and it is independent of light because as this is occurring throughout the day, so that is why it is independent of the light, because respiration is something very different than the photosynthesis. Here the raw material used by the plants is carbon dioxide and water. Here carbohydrates or the organic substance and the oxygens get used up. Okay, carbohydrates means nothing but the formula of glucose only. Photosynthesis, in this process, if you are going to see, light energy is being converted into the chemical energy. So as in the previous part, if you are going to see, okay, this was the solar energy. So this was the, okay, this was the sun rays which was falling on the leaf of the plants. Now this is the light energy, and with the help of this light energy it gets formed in the form it gets fixed up in the form of the chemical energy. What is the chemical energy? Chemical energy means which helps to make up this food. See, if you are going to see, this glucose is getting formed. What is this glucose? Glucose is nothing but it is the chemical formula, so that is why chemical energy, and it has been stored in the form of the carbohydrates. Okay, in the respiration process, in the process, chemical energy stored in the carbohydrates burns to release energy. So as we can see this part, see, we can see this glucose, oxygen gets broken down, this glucose gets broken down into carbon dioxide and water. So this chemical energy got broken down and released up the energy in the form of the ATP. Okay, in the photosynthesis, oxygen is released, which is quite useful. Okay, but exactly in the respiration, exactly reverse is getting happen. The oxygen has been utilized and the release part is the carbon dioxide. Now this is very important. Cellular respiration. There was one word, okay, the respiration occurs in the cellular respiration. Okay, so first I am going to help you out with the part. See, there is a sun which is providing up the light energy to the cell organelle, that is the chloroplast. Okay, and there is C, and the carbon dioxide and the water which is present in the atmosphere has been absorbed by this chloroplast. Light energy also got absorbed in, and there was a pigment, that is the chlorophyll. Okay, this chloroplast is a pigment. Okay, and with the help of this all material, that is the sunlight, carbon dioxide, water, this plant cell is going to form up the oxygen and glucose. Okay, this was all about the photosynthesis reaction. Now what is going to happen with this glucose? This is the mitochondria, see, and it is getting released the energy in the form of the ATP. Now what is going to happen? See, I am just going to help you out with the basic organelle. See, this is a basic plant cell, and I am going to make this, see, this structure has been already made, so just assume this is the mitochondria. Okay, and the rest of the part, it is called the cytoplasm. Okay, So what is the function of the cytoplasm? We have already completed up this cell chapter. The function of the cytoplasm is that the cytoplasm is the cell organelle where all the chemical reaction takes place. Okay, where all the chemical reactions takes place. And what is the function of the mitochondria? To release of the energy in the form of the ATP. So what is going to happen? I am just going to explain you slowly. See, this formula of glucose gets broken down into C3. Okay, see how many carbon was there? There was 6 carbon, and eventually it got converted into 3 carbons. This 3 carbon is called as the pyruvate. Okay, what is pyruvate? It is nothing but half of the glucose. Pyruvate. Okay, where this reaction was occurring? Inside the region that is called the cytoplasm, because cytoplasm is the cell organelle where all the chemical reactions takes place. Okay, so this glucose got broken down into pyruvate in the region that is the cytoplasm. This breaking down of glucose is also called as the glycolysis. This breaking down of glucose, this process is called glycolysis. Why it is called glycolysis? Because see, the word glyco means glucose and lysis means to break down. You have heard the word electrolysis, okay, in chemistry. What does that mean? Electro means electricity and lysis means to get breakdown. So same like that, glycolysis means glyco means glucose and lysis means to break down. So glucose got break down into pyruvate in the region that is cytoplasm. Now we were on C3, okay, as the place was insufficient, so that's why I have erased. Now this C3 will get converted into C1, that is carbon dioxide. Okay, because the formula of the carbon dioxide is CO2, right? How many carbons are there? Only one, na? So this C1 is representing this carbon dioxide. Okay, just understand its part. C1. Now what is going to happen? How does this pyruvate gets converted into carbon dioxide? Now I am going to recollect up the organelle, that is mitochondria. What is the function of the organelle mitochondria? That it works in the cellular respiration. So from C3 it is getting converted into carbon dioxide, where it is occurring in the region that is a mitochondria, because the function of the mitochondria is to release of the energy, cellular respiration. Okay, it works for the cellular respiration. Now as this C1 has been from C3 it has been broken down to C1, where this was occurring in the mitochondria region, and as the previous step was called glycolysis, this step is called Krebs cycle. Why it is called as the Krebs cycle? Because this Krebs is a person, means he was a scientist who discovered up this part. Okay, whenever the plant make up the glucose, how does they break up, how does they can release up the carbon dioxide? So he discovered that there was a cell organelle, that is mitochondria, who works for the cellular respiration. So that is why this second process is kept in the name of this person, that is the Krebs. So Krebs cycle. Okay, there are some few important steps that each breakdown is done due to enzymes. Okay, what are enzymes? Enzymes are the biological catalysts. You have heard about this word catalyst. What is the work of the catalyst? Which helps to speed up the reaction. Same like that in the living organisms there are enzymes. Okay, and energy is released in the form of ATP. Okay, this is the third part. And how many, like suppose there is one glucose, C6H12O6. How many molecules it is going to get released? That is, it is going to release 38 molecules of ATP. Okay, and in every series of step the ADP with the help of this phosphate gets converted into ATP. What does that means? See, just understand, ADP means the same only, adenosine diphosphate, di means 2, phosphate. When this diphosphate gets one more phosphate, it gets converted into ATP. ADP, it is the form of the energy which is stored inside the organism, but ATP is the release of the energy. Okay. Now there is a question, how does the entire plant respire? See, so each and every part of the plants respire, but they respire through different parts. That is the stomata in leaves, lenticels in stems, and general surface of the roots. First understand this part, stomata of the cells, stomata in the leaves. What are stomata? Stomata are the pores which are present in the guard cells. Okay, you have heard about this guard cells, right? This pore, the pore means the space, is called the stomata, where it is present in the leaves. Okay, the under surface of the leaf has a lot of stomata. Okay, through which there is a taking in of oxygen and respiring out of the carbon dioxide. Okay, lenticels in the stem. If you have seen of the woody bark stem, okay, of the leaves of these plants, there are some of the cut you can see perfectly. Some of the cut. What are these cuts? These cuts which are present, the cuts which are present on the stem is called nothing but the lenticels. Okay, through this part also the plants respire. Then again there are roots. There are roots. From the roots also plants respire. Okay, so we have studied this part in the germination part, that the seed should not be sown too deep, because if you are going to sow the seed too deep, so it won't be able to get up the oxygen. Okay, so when that seeds gets converted into the roots, the roots also have some tiny spaces out here. See, so there is some tiny space out here. Okay, which helps up to take up this oxygen. So this is the way the entire plant respire. They will respire through stomata, which is present in the leaves. Okay, I know this is not the leaves. This is the stem, and these are the roots. So these are the three different parts of the plants. Now this is a general knowledge question. Sleeping under the tree during midday is good or bad? See, you have often heard this part, that sleeping under tree during night is not good, because it takes up all the oxygen from our body. Okay, but I am talking about the midday, that is in the noon part of the day. Yes, definitely it's good. Why it is good? Because during noon it gives us shade. Okay, and due to this it helps us to get the coolness effect. Coolness effect. How does it can provide up the coolness effect? Through the transpiration, that the plant lose up the water in the form of the water droplets. So it gives up the coolness effect. Okay, it helps us to maintain up the atmosphere in a cool way, and it provides us with a lot of oxygen, because we know the plants work in a reverse fashion, like they take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen. So this oxygen during midday and the coolness effect, both of them are accompanied together. So preferably sleeping under the tree during midday is good. Okay, Now there are two types of respiration which we are going to see. That is, it is the aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. See, aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration is those respiration which occurs in the presence of oxygen. I have already said this part in the start. Aerobic means with air. So what does anaerobic mean? See, the word aerobic means the oxygen also, na? But what does an means? An means without. Without oxygen. Okay, so a person or the plants can respire in a two way, that is aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic means with the presence of oxygen, anaerobic means without the presence of oxygen. See, first, now we are going to start with the aerobic respiration. So we have already studied about this part. Okay, this aerobic respiration takes in the presence of oxygen, so we can see out the oxygen molecules, and it is releasing of the carbon dioxide, water and energy 38 ATP. But anaerobic respiration, what is the function of this anaerobic respiration? This is a glucose. With the help of energy, it is getting broken down into alcohol and carbon dioxide. This alcohol is called ethyl alcohol. Ethyl alcohol. Okay, just remember this formula, this is very important. The above reaction is also called as oxybiotic. The above reaction is also called as the oxybiotic. Why it is called oxybiotic? Because in the presence of oxygen it is going to take place, right? And the reaction, and this reaction is called anoxybiotic. Anoxy, because word an I already made you understand, it means without, and oxy means oxygen, because this takes place in the process of the this takes place with the absence of the oxygen, so that is why it is also called as the anoxybiotic process. Okay, so how does this alcohol gets formed? This alcohol gets formed in the plants when they does not get the sufficient amount of oxygen. Even some of the few bacteria and fungi also respire anaerobically, means without the oxygen. You might aware about this part, that the bacteria and fungi can grow anywhere. Okay, so we know that part, that the bacteria and the fungi can grow anywhere. So how it is possible? It is possible only when there is no presence of oxygen. So that is why they have a huge amount of a reproduction. Okay, a bacterial cell can divide into millions and billions of times in 24 hours. So thank you, students. So this was the part 1 of the respiration in plants.